Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Warm welcome to another edition of APAC Dialogue. And today's guest is Apurva Mankad, CEO of WebXpress. And on behalf of APAC News Network, we welcome him to this edition. Just
Thanks a lot.
before we start, welcome. Just before we start, a brief on APAC News Network. We are a media organization headquartered out of Noida with a pan-India presence and with specific focus on how technology is deployed across government, education, BFSI, healthcare, manufacturing, as well as the startups. So primarily, today's discussion, we would like to know about WebExpress, about the SaaS solutions around logistics sector, and we would like to talk a little bit about the sector itself. What are the technology and business trends that are emerging? So maybe the best way to start would be, Apurva, if you can briefly introduce your roles and responsibilities, as well as take our audience a little through the genesis of WebExpress. Over to you.
Sure, absolutely. First of all, many thanks for inviting me on this particular show of Epic Dialogue. I'm very happy to be part of the same. So let me quickly start by first telling about myself. So I am the founder and CEO of WebExpress. I started this company to address various problems in the logistics sector related to technology in 2005. Today, we are based in Mumbai and operating in about 8 countries, working with almost 100 plus customers and 25,000 odd users who use our systems at any point of time. Essentially, the company's job is to provide technology to make sure that the entire process of logistics is digitized end to end. We started our journey, of course, in an era where there was no mobility, for example, and we progressed over time by using web-based system over to mobility. And today, in the world where we are essentially a cloud-based software as a services solution. The entire idea has been to see how we add value to our customers in India as well as the region. And our region, as we know, is what we call as the emerging market, where the adoption of technology and the uses of technology is very different as compared to, let's say, a market like America or EU. So that has been our background, and we are continuously working to see how we can bring next level of innovation to this industry.
Thank you. Can you take us through the portfolio of the solutions and services that you offer, and maybe briefly mention the functioning of each of these solutions and services also?
Absolutely. So logistics is a very large sector, and almost everything is considered within logistics, including people logistics when you are moving people in transportation, for example, or logistics related to the move toward the goods and cargo that we move and we see it on the road. Within the entire world of logistics, we focus on what we call as domestic logistics, which means whatever is the industrial cargo movement or parcel movement happens within the boundaries of a given country. India, of course, as you know, is a very large country with a very large domestic sector. The other parts of logistics typically will be, for example, shipping, when you are exporting your cargo or importing your cargo over the seas or aircraft, etc. But we focus on domestic logistics. Now, within that area of domestic logistics, essentially we focus on three verticals. One is what we call is transportation management. Second is the warehouse management. And third area is e-commerce logistics. Now, transportation logistics, what we do essentially is to make sure that as the cargo is booked from one part of the country and moved across the length and breadth all the way to the second part and delivered to your home, we provide these solutions to manage the entire life cycle, right from booking to the movement of the cargo to all the way to the delivery. Now, to a layman, it may look like a cargo is simply getting into a vehicle and moving from point A to B. But when you go to the depth of it, there is, of course, much more detailing. For example, if I have to move one box of mobile phone, let's say the latest Samsung S22, I'm not going to pick up one box and take it into one big truck of 32 feet long and move it from Mumbai to Delhi, for example, right? You're obviously going to fill that entire truck with very large number of mobile phones, but how are you going to get all of them? So you'll pick up those mobile phones from multiple different small places, put them into one area, and then fill a truck and then, do the entire thing on the opposite side. So this is where the complexity of logistics builds in. Imagine doing it across the country over, let's say, 800 odd cities in India. Imagine the amount of work Samsung has to do to get all those phones first imported, stored, distributed. So logistics becomes very complicated when you do scale business, and which is where companies like WebXpress come in to add technology to enable that particular scale. Similarly, in a warehouse, you can have a very small place. Let's say inside your house, if I ask you where is your washing machine and where is your fridge and where have you kept your books, unless you are a bad student like me, you will definitely remember where they are. But imagine if you are sitting in a warehouse which is 5 lakh square feet, and I ask you find some books. Very, very difficult to do, right? So on Amazon, when it is to find a book for you from a very massive warehouse and then send it to your home, of course you require a warehouse management system. So essentially, these are the kind of solutions that we work upon. The third area I just mentioned, e-commerce logistics. Now, how is it different? Now, all this time logistics was happening, but in last 8 to 10 years, we have seen that people have become much more accustomed to getting things into their home rather than going to a shop and buying things. That has added an extra layer of complexity and much more depth to the entire logistics network. Even the size of India today, every village and every town is wanting material to be ordered online. So the amount of work that the logistics industry has to do is much more, and result into that the technology required to manage so many different areas and complexity is increasing. That's our day-to-day job.
Got it. So now let's take each of these areas in a little bit detail. You first mentioned about the transportation. Of course, within logistics sector, transportation is critical. And maybe you initially mentioned you're working in 8 countries, but let's start for first focus on India. And you also mentioned that you handle mainly the domestic consumption, not the industrial. So, in the domestic transportation, what are the processes involved, and where does the software solution help in if I may say, increasing the productivity of those processes?
Sure. So let me take a journey of one particular product and then explain how our process works. Let's say if I am HP, Hewlett Packard, and I want to move laptops from one part of the country to the other, right? And I have to supply to, let's say, dealers into Delhi by taking from the warehouse which I have, let's say, in Kalamboli near Mumbai. So what my software does is, first of all, it will help the logistics company to go to the HP warehouse and book the cargo, where it will count all the HP laptops, put up a barcode label on each and every one of them so that they identify that I picked up this particular set of laptops and now I'm moving them from one part of the other. Where some laptops, let's say, are going to Delhi and some laptops might go to Kolkata. So I have to put up an identification label. So our software will help in booking and identification as step number one. Now he's going to load his small, Tata Ace kind of a vehicle, where he's going to pick up probably 100 odd laptops and move from the HP's warehouse in the Kalamboli area near Mumbai in Panvel, and he will go to his own warehouse, let's say in Bhiwandi area. So now my vehicle is going to move, let's say, about 50 kilometers. My software helps to track that particular vehicle, which is the vehicle, who is the driver, where is it right now on the map, for example. At B1D, many such small Tata Ace vehicle will come, and all this material will be offloaded. Now I must segregate the material to take it to Kolkata. Material should go to the Kolkata area within my warehouse, right? The material for Delhi should go to Delhi area. So we then help using a barcode scanning technology. Our handle terminal direct the person to say, oh, you scanned up this box, you put it there. This box, you put it there. That way the segregation happens using our software. Now the Delhi material, which is HP's laptops and maybe of 5 other companies, different type of material has to be loaded, and the vehicle is to start at a particular point of time. Now these logistics companies literally work like train network. They have a set time at which a particular vehicle will depart, let's say from Bhiwandi near Mumbai, and travel all the way via Gujarat, then Rajasthan, and reach Delhi, for example, let's say in 48 hours of time, stopping on the way to Ahmedabad, Vapi, Jaipur, etc. So my software maintains the schedule of all such movement of routes, the type of vehicle, the size of the vehicle, who is going to move it, which is the driver, etc. You will load this vehicle, again scan all the material into that vehicle, log that particular vehicle, put up a seal number. That too is recorded in the software, because you must make sure that the log that you put at Mumbai is the log that you will open, let's say at Vapi, which is the next stop, so that there is no intermediate any possibility of theft or any kind of wrong playing with the particular material. Again, the software helps you in tracking that. Material will now move from B1D to Vapi and then onwards to, let's say, Ahmedabad, etc. Every stop, Vehicle is opened, material is offloaded, which is meant for your location. Some more material is loaded. Every point of time, you must have real-time visibility. What is inside that vehicle? How full is the vehicle? How much space I've got left? Then only I can do my planning of filling that vehicle on route, correct? Because it's going to take 48 hours to go from Mumbai to Delhi. That entire journey is tagged to the software. The vehicle will reach its destination in Delhi, let's say near Gurgaon. It will offload the entire material, and again, similarly, the entire sortation will happen. Again, a smaller vehicle will come from Gurgaon, go to, let's say, in Connaught Place in Delhi, and deliver to that particular dealer who is supposed to require exactly 4 pieces of laptops. You need to do it accurately, and every point of time, the software makes sure that when you're scanning the material, you don't do any wrong steps. And you have the entire history right from the point you picked up from HP all the way to the dealer available into a history sheet. So that if there is any question, any query tomorrow as to what you did, how you did, the software helps you to give the answer to the same. So this should give an idea how the software is enabling the entire process at every step of movement of transportation. And this it does over the entire network. I gave you an example, a small one, Mumbai, Delhi. Some vehicles will go to Kolkata, some will go to let's say Chennai, some vehicle will come from Pune, offloaded Mumbai, and all those complexities are maintained through an entire large dashboard in a control tower so that the team sitting at head office is able to monitor each and every one of them. Some vehicles might get delayed on the way because there is, let's say, some flooding, or there is some problem on the road, or the roads are bad, or traffic is there. You are required to alert people about the same. So these are the typical activities a transportation software does.
Great. So this the transportation module that you mentioned, this has to integrate the way you describe the process, integrate with the warehouse management software also,
Correct.
because it will start from one warehouse. On the way, there will be different warehouses. It will be so. How does that integration happen? One, and two is the interface, the hardware part of the interface, the terminals that the courier persons would be using, uh, and how the application. So, how is the hardware part taken care of?
Right. So yes, integration is a very important part because without integration, you will end up taking a physical paper invoice and punch in all the data all over again. Imagine doing it for 10,000 different shipment, right? That is absolutely loss of productivity. So what we do is we do API integration with softwares of warehouse management system. Now it's quite possible that the warehouse management software doesn't belong to my company. It belongs to, let's say, HP's own software, right? So you have to make sure that you build bridges with different kind of companies and different software to get the data automatically. Typically, an order data or an invoice data will be pushed to you from the warehousing system to the transportation system. These days, we also do integration with e-way bill system. So all we take is an e-way bill number, and from there we can get the data from the government's website itself. Today, that is a very amazing system you have in India. So not many countries have this kind of an e-way bill system, which is a digital gate pass every company creates to move cargo from point A to B, and you can take that data and use the same as well. So that's again an integration that we do. Talking about hardware, there are two ways people manage hardware today. Of course, you use mobile phones when you are going to the last mile, going to a customer place. You will typically see these courier people or cargo people typically bring their own Android phone or a Apple phone and update that information. Now, that is one type of software, one type of hardware which is used. Second, as I mentioned to you, when you're doing industrial scale scanning, let's say hundreds of boxes have to be scanned, and you use something called as handle terminal. Now, these are specialized mobile phones, so as to say, which are very hardened. They are kind of made to withstand dust. They can withstand some amount of fall, etc. And they are typically supplied by companies like Zebra, for example, or a Point Mobile, etc. So we help the customers procure such devices based on what their specifications are and put our software inside those devices. Typically these days, Android is the operating system used in most of these things. Of course, in India, we are having many more Android phones as compared to the Apple phones, but increasingly even that is being integrated. So our software goes inside those hardware. The logistics company may use a different set of hardware such as sorting machines. Sometimes they use a lot of CCTV. Obviously, all of that are sometimes integrated to give you some additional information.
Okay, so basically, what that means is you collaborate with the hardware OEMs, the likes of Zebra, or the other the barcode scanner makers, and
Correct.
okay, so this integration talks about the first two parts: the transportation module and the warehouse module. Now, if you can elaborate more on the e-commerce logistics and what are the use cases there?
Absolutely. So e-commerce logistics, as I mentioned earlier, adds a very different level of complexity, which is your home, right? Because initially you went to a big warehouse, let's say in Panvel, picked up a one truck full of cargo, and then picked up across the country. I gave you the example. Now imagine you have to deliver these hundreds of laptops, each of them one at every home, correct? Now e-commerce companies today in India, almost 15 million, that is 1.5 crore plus shipments are delivered every day in India today, right? My customers, some of them are e-commerce companies like DTDC, for example, or Snapdeal. They manage lakhs of shipments every day, out of those crores of shipment which are being managed by the industry per se. Now imagine in one single city, there might be as many as 5,000 deliveries in a given day. In a normal business to business scenario, those 5,000 deliveries will be sent probably into 50 trucks and you do probably 100 stops, your job is done. But in case of e-commerce, each of those 5,000 locations are different. Point number one. Secondly, the way e-commerce works in India, especially, there can be some of those shipments might have been paid by credit card before buying. Some of those shipments people will pay when you receive them, what is called as payment on delivery or cash on delivery. A lot of people may prefer and give you a Google Pay when you reach their door, but will not pay you before buying the product. So there are multiple modes of receipt of payment. Now, when you deal with consumers, right, they can be very fickle. For example, you started your vehicle with 100 deliveries, right? You reach delivery number 15 and the person is not at home. Now, you have to finish other 80 deliveries, right? So you can't really be waiting for him to come back to home. So there are a lot of failures on the point of delivery. Many a times, a consumer may change his mind saying that, yeah, I ordered it before, but I don't want it. He may reject it, right? So these complexities have to be handled additionally apart from managing the entire transportation across the country as far as e-commerce is concerned. So we have systems for that. So our software, for example, helps in appointment making. Before you go for delivery, a SMS is sent or a message is sent to the customer. I'm going to come for pickup. Are you okay? If not, please let me know. Or a call center will make a call and find out that this particular customer has refused to take delivery today, has gone out of station for urgency. He may come after 2 days. So that is marked. That data is sent from e-commerce company all the way to the logistics partner saying this particular shipment don't take. Now you must mark it in your software so that it is by mistake not scanned and put inside a particular biker's bag, for example, right? Again, software manages by doing interaction with the e-commerce company's software, for managing such controls. Once you collect the money, that matter doesn't end. You need to really account for the money. You need to send that money into some kind of a bank, for example. You will not keep in your home, right, or in your office. And then that money has to be repatriated back to the company to whom the money belongs. For example, I'm doing delivery on behalf of Amazon and I'm DTDC. DTDC has to collect that money and give it back to Amazon, right? Because they are the one who sold the product. All these things have to be tracked across literally tens of hundreds of locations across the country for tens of thousands of deliveries every day, which is where the scale of the software and the detailing of the software comes into the picture. Obviously, anything goes wrong, there must be alerts which must be generated for doing the same. Now, when you're tracking a biker, by the way, you cannot really put a GPS device on his head, right? So you track his mobile phone. So you have an additional work to be done in software for tracking that particular biker. You also want to guide the biker that you go in this direction, you will save kilometers because on his own, biker may drive in anyway. Now you will find out end of the day, instead of traveling 120 kilometers, he has gone and traveled, let's say 160 kilometers. Who will pay for the additional 40 kilometer? The e-commerce companies, logistics company will have to pay that money. So what we do is optimize those routes and guide that particular biker. These are the additional software modules that we use as far as e-commerce logistics is concerned. So payment, route management, alert management, cash on delivery are the different areas over and above what is otherwise a normal transportation system.
Okay, so when you are talking of these additional modules, and they are perfectly valid, two situations I would like. One, when these bikers are traveling, these courier guys are traveling, there is a manual physical element involved. Ultimately, it's a human being. You can have the trackers, you can have the alerts on that, as you mentioned. But how do you? There can be losses even. Uh, there because there is a human element. So how can you ensure that tracking? And more importantly, as you mentioned, the software models, and I know it's a cloud-based software, doesn't take too much bandwidth. But still, having said that, India is a vast country. They are traveling through remote places, and the quality of bandwidth or quality of network will not be uniform everywhere. So that can also pose challenges. So how do you manage to mitigate these challenges?
So very pertinent questions. Yes, there is a big risk and probability of problems when you're doing e-commerce delivery, because by sheer number of people you are touching, there can be theft. Let's say, for example, from a biker, because he's carrying some important material. Most people know inside that box that he's carrying there must be something useful and valuable, right? If you get lucky, maybe you will find an iPhone 10 or iPhone 13, right? So it may be 1 lakh rupees for all you know. So yes, that's one risk one carries. Secondly, there is a risk of damage. There is raining, the roads are bad, biker may fall because of the pothole, the product may get damaged. So again, the software comes in the picture, typically a mobile enabled software, to help the biker capture this information. Typically, a consumer may refuse delivery, saying that this package looks damaged, I'll return it. You take a photograph, you have a call center number, you press a button on the mobile phone, you immediately make a call center person look at that particular box and say, try to convince the customer that it's just an external damage of the slightly to the carton, kindly take it, because I've come all the way for delivery. So such things are enabled by the technology, and even those calls are recorded even with the permission of the customer, that there should not be any kind of tutu meme when that kind of interaction happens. Software does that. Similarly, suppose he doesn't take that particular material back, or for whatever reason it got damaged, you bring it back to your branch. Then there is an audit module to take care of photographs of that material, storing it properly, and then sending it back all the way to the company. There has to be an insurance claim around it. That's why all this information is required. Now there is also an area of what we call as return logistics or reverse logistics, right? That means that you are going not to deliver but to pick up material back, because the consumer decided to send something back to you. At that point of time, you need to again do the entire capture, go to the customer location, check he has given the right material. In this country, there are cases where people said that I'm returning a phone, but he's actually sent you a, let's say a bar of a soap, for example, right? And poor biker didn't know, he gets it back only to find that instead of an iPhone, he's got a bar of soap, right? So there can be such possible potential, or there can be straightforward, sometimes like your apparel, especially, right, which is returned a lot. It is crumpled or it is torn, then the biker will be liable if he doesn't take care of that photograph. And when you get it back to the center, and if you don't take care of it, then you will be paying. So every step of this supply chain on the reverse path, also the technology has to be utilized in a very big way for doing these kind of challenges, right? And the software obviously and the technology comes and helps you in doing many of these areas. The second question you asked regarding bandwidth, again a very pertinent question. Over times, we have learned as software companies that you cannot assume bandwidth to be granted. Even inside your own room, sometimes the 4G doesn't work, right? Even though you're sitting in a metro sometimes. On the road, it can be very variable. So most of the technology is what we call as hybrid, online, offline technology. For example, when you're logging into your your mobile phone to get the delivery load, suppose you're a biker, you need online. You need to connect to the internet. It will download the data. Let's say you have to do 50 delivery. The addresses, everything will come inside your mobile phone. Now it will stay inside your mobile phone. Every time you do a delivery, all the data that you capture of delivery, confirmation, timing, etc., is stored inside the mobile phone. Mobile application keeps on looking at cloud and says, are you available? Is the network available? If yes, the data is pushed. If not, the data is always protected inside your mobile device till the time you find a network. It's quite possible that during the day of 7-8 hours, you will definitely find network for a couple of hours, so at least 3 to 4 hours at least. And that may be intermittent in nature. So you have to assume such things in a developing country like India. And things will not always work. In fact, your fundamental assumptions is that things will go wrong. How are you going to manage them? Because that is the difference between we working in India versus, let's say, some of the software companies working in USA, where everything will work as per plan, right? If the route says it will take right turn, the right turn will not be blocked. It will be working, right? You will not suddenly find the port by, board by municipal corporation, today this road is blocked, right? There will be nothing called as a VIP movement. So such things don't happen, let's say in USA or in Europe, which are part and parcel of life as far as our work is concerned. There is also one more type of scalability I must add, apart from managing the bandwidth issue, which I just talked about. The sheer scale of data. Imagine if I'm taking every recording phone call, amount of voice that I'm adding. Now, a lot of companies saying that also add a video. Now, video has a lot of privacy concerns, so it is not added without the consent of the end consumer. Consumer may not like that you are videographing, particular person. There are other problems because of that. So it is still not really in a big way. But suppose it picks up. Imagine the amount of video you will start capturing. the server space that you'll require for crores of delivery that you're doing every day. Imagine the amount of data, bandwidth, servers. So yes, cloud plays a very important role in helping you provide all these at a fairly reasonable cost and a scalable way. And again, that is where companies like us specialize into, managing the same. We ask the customer, do you really need voice recording? How many do you predict? Do you want exceptional based voice recording? Do you want everything to be voice recorded? It says exception basis, then my prediction is so much for amount of bandwidth, so on and so forth. So when 5G will come in, I'm sure immediately people's expectation will go up that we should have a live video transaction of the delivery, right? One will see how these things will pan out. But yes, the bandwidth issues as well as the infrastructure issues today are tackled in a very special way in India.
Okay, so one thing now, since you have mentioned, if you can mention specifically again now restrict to the Indian market, who are the marquee customers that you are working with, and what sort of go-to-market strategy you follow for these customers?
Sure. So we work with two types of customers. We work, as I said, with e-commerce type of customers as well as what we call as business to business type of customers. So Snapdeal is one of our marquee customer. We work with BBC Group, which is into what is called a secure logistics. They are the companies which are essentially working in what we call as e-commerce as the arena. We also work with a large number of transportation companies. So DTDC, for example, is a customer for us. We work with companies like Toll Logistics, Linfox Logistics. These are global MNCs who are operating in India as well as the region. We also work a lot with what we call as the retail companies and manufacturing companies. So, for example, we work with Aditya Birla Fashion and Retail. So, our software helps them manage the entire distribution of their material across the entire country through multiple courier partners. So, we have given a solution to them. Similarly, work with companies like Thermo Fisher, which is into medical products, for example, very, very sensitive and important products which must go. They were leaders into providing the, inherent kits and the building blocks for, let's say, the entire COVID-19 vaccination. So again, which was a very important project for us to do with them, and we continue to work with them. So we work with both type of companies: manufacturing companies, retail companies, logistics companies, and of course, e-commerce is a important area and very fast growing. But at the same time, the country is much larger than just e-commerce. So we try to work with everybody across the board. As far as go to market, well, we have been around for a good amount of time. We've built a certain amount of, let's say, reputation and repo in the market. A good amount of our go to market happens through just telling people what we do and whom are we working with. That itself convinces the next customer that, okay, if you work so much and you're working with such and such customer, we would like to see what you're doing. So it is much more now through our demonstration of product and our customer experiences how we approach the go to market. And the approaches to go to market are many. There is, of course, one-on-one. LinkedIn is one of our biggest channel, for example, to approach people and talk to. There is, of course, reference-based marketing. We go and tell our customers to introduce us to people, and we go and meet them in person. Of course, after Corona, physical meetings have happened again. Otherwise, it used to be online, for example. We do some amount of marketing in terms of, let's say, being present into an exhibition, for example. But much more amount of work, I will definitely say, is we let our product do the talking. And increasingly, we find that people see what work we are doing on the ground, and then they kind of approach us and say, we would like to work with you as well. And of course, that's the way we've been growing.
Okay, so the logical next question is there are similar solution providers in the logistics space who are working. So, if I may ask you to list down two or three unique differentiators for yourself where you score over your competitors.
See, absolutely. So one of the things we score definitely is the experience that we bring to the table. Not many companies are of the vintage that we are having since 2005. We've been working, and at least for the last 10 years, we've been very aggressively working in the market with so many customers. So the amount of domain expertise and the knowledge of detailed processes we bring to the table, that is something which is not replicable always by, let's say, a more invested, company. That's one thing. Second area is the implementation capability. See, we appreciate that in India, even though your software is a service, cloud-based software, people need handholding, right? People need support. People will not be able to grasp the, concepts or the software just because you gave them an online training session, right? They will require some amount of work. And most importantly, most of the support that companies need is once they start ramping up their operation with our software and not at the initial stage. Any amount of workshop you conduct before the software is gone live is going to evaporate, right? Because people have just too many things competing their mind in their mind for grasping of information, right? You will not retain that unless you use it every day. So we maintain a very strong implementation and support team. And this is very contrary to many of the cloud companies who have come and said that self-service, right? But the entire idea of cloud is just, install something, use it on your own. Now, this may be very true for for a consumer like you and me. For example, we'll download an app and start using it and learn on our own out of our own intuition. But in the business to business scenario, that is not the case. And then there are complexities. How do I handle returns module? How do I handle particular type of customer contract? How do I tackle a situation, let's say, where somebody has, wrongly delivered the, information in the software? How do I change it? There are literally hundreds of questions which come from users every day, and we need to tackle. So there is a second differentiation we bring, what we call as the implementation capability. And third, and the very important area that we bring to the table is that very unlike a technology company, we don't talk technology with our customers. See, while we as technology people love to talk about cloud and Azure and Microsoft and Google and machine learning and AI and whatnot, right? The end customer literally gets bored with it. He says, you tell me what value you're bringing to my business. That is what I want to know. You will bring a good technology. We assume that because all of you are from technology world, we know you'll do your job. And that is something which we imbibe into our team at every level, be it sales team, be it our project team, that do not over talk about technology and the great capabilities that technology can do it. Now, since we are having a technology session, I went into a bit of a detail of, let's say, bandwidth and how we will manage cloud and things like those. But with the customer, he says, will you be able to give my service level? Will my software work? Will I get my data in time? Do you handle that situation? Do you handle this situation? They have a case-based discussion. So we have tried to differentiate ourselves by focusing first of all on domain expertise. Second, as I said, in implementation, and third is to talk about user experiences and the use cases rather than talking about a technology which is doing the same. And there we probably stand apart from many of the new age startups who have done a great job, but then sometimes they become too much in love with their own technology.
So, you mentioned the second part, the implementation technique part you mentioned, and you also mentioned you don't talk about technology, but I wanted a little bit back on the technology part in the sense
Yeah.
the support, and services that you're talking about. So, one, those questions. So, do you create a template, an FAQs kind of template, or is there certain AI being used to gather? Because every case you are gathering more insights and data, and to create actionable insights. So, are you implementing any AI part on the technology? And the second part also on technology, I would like to understand since you have these warehouses and these movable drivers also. So, other than the terminals, are there sensors? So, basically, the IoT part, I would like to understand what you are doing there.
Yeah, absolutely. We use a lot of these technologies. The only point I was making is the good technology is the one which is invisible from the user's perspective. But of course, you and I have to, deploy many of the new things all the time. So yes, we use first of all AI, especially within AI, we use cognitive as the area in a very big way. For example, I gave you the use case where I have taken a material, right, and it is damaged. Now I can take a photograph and run it past a cognitive API and compare it with multiple such use cases and say whether it's actually damaged or not, and not leave a human being to decide it's a damaged or not, right? For example, what we call as the Vision API is what is used for doing that. We use Azure's Vision API in a lot of way. For example, recently we launched a solution on WhatsApp where we say you just take a photograph of proof of delivery. Right, that's it. You don't tell me where you are, what you've taken, who is the customer. Thank you. We take the photograph, convert that image into, it's supposed to be a document, of course. First of all, we check it's a document, right? If he's taken photograph of a chair, then we say, sorry, it's not a document, it's a chair. Then people do that, right? You tell them, force them, you have to take a proof of delivery at the door of customer. He'll take anything and come back, right? So AI can help you in doing that one. After that, you take the document, read the document number automatically from that software, what we call as robotic process automation, effectively, which is using the combination of your AI, which is cognitive API, and compared with the databases. So you automate the process of data capture, and you know the location because you're using mobile phone, so you know where you've taken the delivery. I'm able to create a geofence around my customer from his address, so I know, oh, you delivered at my customer location or you delivered from somewhere else. Now, all these user doesn't have to give me any of that information, which we used to ask them once upon a time. Tell me whom you delivered to, where you delivered, is it good, bad, ugly? Nothing. You take a photograph, send it on WhatsApp. Don't even use my mobile application. So we use many of these combination of technologies to make life of the user easier. Absolutely, that is used today. You talked about sensors. Yes, it's a very big role today as far as automation is concerned. For example, very obvious sensor and very obvious data we use is GPS. I talked about it a couple of times. But then there are certain areas where you need to use additional sensor. Like one of my customer is increasingly invested into what is called as camera-based volumetric machine. What do you mean by that? Now, typically I give you an empty box and I move by a truck, right? What is an empty box? Let's say, for example, you're moving a toy, at a fluffy toy, and it is inside a box. What will be the weight of a box? Maybe 1 kg, 1.5 kg, but the amount of space it occupies is equivalent to probably 20 kg of material which otherwise you would have sold. So what logistics companies do is they charge on volume basis for light cargo. Who is going to measure the volume? Right? You expect the data to come from the warehouse system, but most of the time the warehouse system does not give you LBH, it will give you weight. Right? That's a limitation of most warehousing software. Now, what do you do in that case? You put up a volumetric machine. It's actually a camera which reads the photograph, right, of a particular box and automatically dimensions it. And we use that data inside our software to say, oh, I should charge you more because you're giving me a lighter material because I'm also taking a weight. Now that is where again a sensor based or CC, camera based technology is used. Also, there are now sensors available, for example, especially in cold chain, to know the temperature. See, you don't want to know that you have kept material inside a freezer, right? What happened while you're taking the material across the country? See, when you are doing a last mile delivery, maybe it is not so difficult because you take a dry ice pack, right, into a Swiggy, for example, put inside your box, you're coming for 20 minutes, the material will stay, the ice cream will stay, and the consumer will tell you whether the ice cream is good, bad, or ugly. But when you're delivering hundreds and thousands of ice cream across the country, how do you know if the truck has lost temperature, right? Very smart trucker, he wanted to save diesel, उसने जैसे अपना उबर वाला एसी बंद कर देता है, उसने अपना स्विच ऑफ कर दिया, right? Your temperature went from -18 degree to -13. The ice cream will spoil, right? At -13, it's still -13. You and I will freeze in it. Sensors are able to continuously take that data and read it, from your vehicle itself. So there are multiple such things increasingly are available, whether in the warehousing environment, right? Whether in the area of, for example, transportation. For example, we were talking to one company to experiment with drone-based inventory take. Inside the warehouse, a human being is taking inventory like literally reading it, right? It takes forever. Now, of course, that experiment has not gone down very well because there are a lot of limitations inside warehouse for a drone to fly. The space is too less; it will collide. So they are perfecting the art of doing it in a much better way. But there are such initiatives today available, and we continuously operate on them. Only thing, when we go to the customer, we generally do not tom AI and cognitive and API and AI and machine learning. They said, I mean, वो सब छोड़ो यार, तुम problem क्या solve कर रहे हो बताइए, and we try to focus on that.
Sure. So the last question is one. Overall, look going forward, what are the trends, the newer trends that you are witnessing, and accordingly, what are the key focus areas for WebExpress, if I may say, next 6-7 quarters, maybe?
So first and foremost trend is that uh, increasingly people are realizing that the activities they do are resulting a lot of greenhouse emissions. And today's consumer is asking questions that, are you cleaning up your act? Let's say, are you using vehicles which are EV? Now we all know that EV is still at a very early stage. But in the last mile delivery, a lot of companies are being asked, are you using your delivery using an electric scooter or using a diesel scooter? Time will come in next few years where the current generation of young kids who are growing up, right, as they become young people, they will demand that I will not buy from an e-commerce company who is not delivering green products or delivering in a green way. The entire logistics chain will have to become green. So that's a very big trend which is emerging, and very quickly, you and I probably do not see it, but a lot of young people today are very concerned about the environment. They are asking these questions. In fact, they ask questions, why are we wasting so much of packaging, for example? And they are very conscious today because of the education they are receiving today from schools and etc. So that's going to be one big trend. Second, which you already mentioned, reading sensors. So people want to automate. See, India is full of human beings, right? We have no dearth of people. We have 130 crore of them, right? At the same time, finding labor which is trained to work on specific tasks is increasingly becoming difficult, especially in metros. So people want to improve productivity, thereby investing literally into machines and robots. It's very funny in a country as poor as ours, we want to use robots for automating some of the tasks where they are not exactly dangerous in nature. Human being can do it, and human being is still very poor. But you don't get qualified labor, so people are wanting to replace a lot of people. I'll not say replace, but let's say enhance their productivity with the help of the sensors and other technology. That is the second trend that we are working upon. Third, of course, is what we call is end-to-end digitization. It may be a little boring, but the question that you asked about warehouse systems sending data to transportation, it's not a given. It has to be done, and it is not still natural that all systems talk to each other without much intervention. A lot of attention is being paid to that particular area. Now you've got some of the new age initiatives with government, for example, e-way bill is one of them. ONDC has come up to create an open network where everybody can talk to each other. Again, that's a very, very important area which is emerging. If it is successful the way UPI is successful, for example, I think it will really help a lot of companies streamline their supply chains in a very big way. So many such trends are emerging, and more keep on coming. We keep on trying to work in each of those areas as a proof of concept typically, and we see how far the customer is willing to kind of put investment, not only in terms of money but also in terms of time and people, because everything which you do new requires a lot of bandwidth on every side. And I think one good part about India today is that people are very ready to experiment with new things today. And I have to give credit to startups for that, because they bring in a lot of energy, they bring in a lot of focus on one particular area, make it happen. I gave you the example of the drone example I gave you, for example, right? The CCTV again is a startup guy who has worked on a very, very low cost device to to measure these volumetric, boxes. So we work with a slew of them. So we've taken an ecosystem approach. We can't do everything. Why not work with partners? So I'm sure going ahead, we will keep on focusing such things, and hopefully many of them will add value to our customers.
And any learnings, just missed out on that. The pandemic, the worst part of the pandemic, saw a lot of disruptions in the supply chain. So, any learnings from there or best practices that you have now inculcated, so that if similar situation happens again, you will be better prepared?
So first of all, we all hope we don't face that situation ever again. But yes, it has taught a lot of people to become resilient. We use that word in context of human beings, but also in terms of supply chain. They have realized that they need to have resilient supply chain. They must have backups, right? I will not work very, very cut the corner frugal way that one fine day my entire business collapses. So that has changed the mindset of manufacturing companies and retailers to always have a backup in place. Within logistics, they realize that it's extremely important to have stable partners with them, because in the supply chain disruption that we had during COVID, they realize the value of having partners who are always with them in bad times. Right, in good times, everybody is trying to cut pricing and cut costs, right? But then you realize that you cut a cost at a level where which partner is no longer viable. He simply, raised his hand in the pandemic, saying, "I don't have additional driver, I don't have additional truck. What do I do?" So people are now building more, I'll say, backup into the supply chain partners as well, which is a second learning which has come. And third and very important one, of course, is that the digitization is here to stay. Right? It is not something which was one off where people got onto a call or they got onto video and they were sitting at home. I hope I have answered your question.
Great. Thanks a lot for your time, and this was very insightful and as well as interesting. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for having me on your show. Bye.